I didn't have an official first job after university. So in my final semester of university, I had the opportunity to be a resident DJ for one of Singapore's biggest club collectives. They were called Massive Collective. It's funny that I say collective now. It's kind of a foreshadow. Interesting. So they're called Massive Collective, and they were pretty massive in Singapore. They were running some of Singapore's biggest clubs called Mink, at that time Dream, and there's also Filter. That was like Singapore's biggest VIP club. So I had this opportunity where they offered me to play at their clubs, and in return, the pay was substantially higher than average fresh graduate job. And I would only have to do this like 3 days or 3 nights a week. So then I was like, all right, let's do this. And so I did.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 71 of the So This Is My Why podcast. I'm your host and producer, Lingya, and today's guest is Sabrina Ooi, co-founder and CEO at Calm Collective Asia, a community for good mental health in Asia with a mission to normalize mental health conversations at home and at work. Now, before we dive in, I just wanted to throw in a little notice that this conversation today is a little heavy. We talk about things like depression, suicide, and death, as well as the state of mental health in Asia. Now, in this episode, we are very blessed to have Sabrina, who shares openly about her life growing up in Singapore, how she felt that she never deserved to be studying at Raffles, which is essentially the top school in Singapore, how she fell into the world of DJing for the likes of Dior Rolls Royce and world's 50 best restaurants, among others. But apart from that, we also talk about her struggles with depression, the first time she experienced it at the age of 11, how it gradually got worse, the moment where she actually contemplated ending it all, and how she ended up being properly diagnosed as bipolar. Sabrina was wonderful in just openly sharing her journey, as well as what it took to recover, and how Calm Collective Asia was birthed during the pandemic. I love this episode, and I'm sure you will too.
I was born and raised in Singapore, and I would say I came from a middle-class family. We grew up in my grandfather's house, and that looks like middle upper, but I mean, we were okay, comfortable. I grew up with a lot of animals at home. So my mom was allergic to cats, and because we're a Muslim family, technically, officially, we couldn't keep any dogs. So the next best thing was to keep rabbits, like bunnies, because my mom wouldn't be allergic and they were interactive enough. So we had rabbits. I had my first rabbit when I was like 5, and then I overloved that one. I gave it too many vegetables, and then it passed away from diarrhea. So I learned something there, I guess. But after that, I continued having other pets, which were also rabbits. We at one point had over 30 bunnies, and we also had hamsters. They were, obviously breeding. We can't stop them. And through that process, we were also selling the offspring because we just couldn't keep all of them. We also had fish at some point.
Being in Singapore, I imagine that academics must have been very important and very much like you must get top grades. Was that something? I mean, you went to Raffles.
I did, and I don't know. I mean, I think I got really lucky, and I can explain why I say that, right? So my parents, they're not your typical tiger parents. So I think I got lucky in that aspect. So my mom actually told me that, hey, Sabrina, I just want you to be average. And I was like, average? Are you kidding me? I want to be more than average. So I was a bit like, confused when I heard that. So when I was 9 years old in primary 3, there was this gifted education program thing that I got into. So basically a bunch of kids at 9 years old, they take a couple of tests which tested your like English and mathematical ability plus some like logical reasoning stuff. And then I just happened to get into this program. And I was like, well, I don't like my class right now because they kind of put me in a class which was like full of competitive girls. And I was like, I want to get out of here. So I told my mom, I want to get out. I want to join this other program, not knowing that it was going to be even more competitive. I was naive. I did not have full perspective back then. But so then I joined the gifted education program when I was 10. And that pretty much set myself up for the next 8 years. So I got into Raffles Girls Primary School when I was 10, and then my whole entire environment was full of overachieving people. And then because of the program, I actually was very playful during those years. I was skipping extra classes, skipping school to play games, spend time with my animals at home, right?
Do you feel like being in that environment was what pushed you to? Because I read that you had that first depressive episode when you were 11.
Definitely, yeah. Because I think I had quite a shock when I moved from my like lower primary years into an environment that was kind of competitive, and you put a bunch of girls who are like maturing or going through puberty, and I think there was a lot of like gossip and like backstabbing and politicking happening in school that I was just not prepared for. So I think that first time when I had that first ever depressive episode, I felt very detached from school. I felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. And I couldn't find a sense of meaning in the day-to-day things that I was doing, right? Like school didn't really mean anything. I was like spending time playing games. I mean, my pets were great. I would stick around for them, but they don't really need me, right? So yeah, I had my first depressive episode when I was 11. And then I managed to still get through the PSLE, primary six leaving examination, the biggest thing that a 12-year-old could go through, right? High stress, full experience for everybody. So when I was in primary six, my teacher actually took my mom aside and told her that Sabrina's not going to make it through the PSLE because she's just not been studying in school. She's just doing the bare minimum, just passing. I was getting like 60 out of 100 for like everything across all my subjects. And that's not what you're supposed to get when you are aiming for the top school, or when you're in that environment, at least. All my peers were getting like 90 something out of 100, right? And compared to them, I was not going to make it. And for me, I wasn't really enjoying myself in school. So what happened that year of primary six was that my mom then just said, okay, Sabrina, we got to just drop all your extracurriculars right now. So I was doing ballet, I was doing piano, and those were actually out of my own interest. Like my mom did not force me to do it. So I stopped all of that. She enrolled me into math and science and English classes, as well as Malay classes, because I was kind of struggling everywhere. And then I made it through the primary six examination. But even so, I did not actually meet the cutoff point for RGS, Raffles Girls School, which is like Singapore's elite top whatever school, right? Still is, apparently. So I didn't make the cutoff point, but because I was in the gifted education program and I was learning Malay, there was this loophole, which meant that as a girl, there's no other alternative school that you can go to besides RGS if you are a female taking Malay as a second language. So I had to go to RGS.
I suppose a happy coincidence.
Yes and no, right? So the whole time I was like battling imposter syndrome. Because I was like, yeah, I guess I gotta go to the school, fine. But then I was like, damn, I don't deserve to be here. Because like all my friends were like, firstly, I would stay in the gifted program and everyone had scored significantly higher than I did. I mean, I still had a decent score, right? I was supposed to go to still an above average school that I was posted to officially. But man, like everyone around me was just so academically gifted. And so even for secondary school, that was quite a struggle for me academically, because I guess I'm not interested. The only times I got interested in things was when I actually enjoyed the subject or if I liked the teacher. I never knew what I wanted to do. I guess I was just taking it day by day and I was just following things that I was interested in. So when I was in secondary school, I was in the 10-pin bowling club. And it's really funny because I'm like pretty small. I'm like 155 cm and quite slim built. So like I was carrying 2 balls, which were like 12 pounds each, right? With me every week to go for training. So I did that initially. And then after that, in the background, all along, I've really loved music. I would always like go home and totally pirate all the music available out there on, was it Napster, then LimeWire and all of that. And I would like make CD mixtapes and stuff.
Been there, done that.
Thank you. Yeah, right. So when I was about 14, 15, I started exploring the like local music scene. And this was where I stumbled upon a lot of like local talent. So at that point, I was listening to a lot of rock. And then I was just checking out all the rock bands. I was learning guitar at the time, like an electric guitar. I have my like Fender Stratocaster. So all of that, I really enjoyed just going into that. And I was spending a lot of time going to gigs, learning about music, listening to music, practicing my guitar, making friends around that as well. A big turning point for me during my secondary school years or my early teenage life was when I had this research project in school where we could choose any topic that we would want to go deep into. And I said that, all right, I'm gonna do a project around Singapore's local English rock scene. That was the exact phrasing, I think. So this gave me the permission to go for gigs, because it's research. It gave me the permission to interview people who are these musicians, the producers, the past, like the gig organizers and all of that. I mean, I got to talk to them and learn from them. And eventually we had done the report and we realized that, hey, we still have some time. Why don't we, from our learnings, raise awareness about the English rock scene in Singapore amongst our fellow students? So the idea to create a concert was born. So that gave rise to this little rock concert that we did called Rock for Good. And we actually pulled in 1,300 people to attend a rock concert in Singapore's top girls' school. That was really cool. So that was kind of like the turning point for me, because all along, from the point I was 10 to 15, I felt massive imposter syndrome because I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be in this elite environment because I'm just not interested in that, or I'm just not good enough. But somehow I got here anyway, right? And I'm still here. So yeah, that was the first time where I could see concretely that I was able to pull something together of that scale for a 15-year-old, putting together a concert, organizing it, coordinating all the different volunteers, security guards, music talent. All of that together was just very confidence building for me. And we also had sold tickets for the concert. So that was the first time I held $10,000 in my hand. Actually, it was $13,000. And I was like, yeah, hey, we sold tickets at $10 a piece, right? So yeah, that was the first time I realized that, oh, I could do this, right? I can see that I can get a team together, work towards a common vision, and make some money out of it. Create a product and make some money out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you go from that to becoming a DJ? Because you were DJing for Dior Rolls Royce. I don't think most people can do that.
Well, again, it was just me following my interests, really, right? So, I mean, I've always liked music. I still do. As I grew older, after my A-levels, there was some time to kill. So my bunch of friends and myself would be partying every week. We would go 3 times a week or twice at least, to a point where my mom's like, Sabrina, it's Wednesday night. Aren't you going out for ladies' night? And I'm like, huh? I'm tired, Mom. I need to stay at home. There was one day where I went out to this club and it was super cool. It was called the Butter Factory in Singapore. And one of the frontmen for the bands that played at my concert was actually DJing. And then I looked up and I was like, oh my God, that's really cool. I can do that. And I can control the crowd. And actually, more importantly, I can get out of the crowd because everyone is so damn tall. So I'm people are just towering over me and they were elbowing my head, right? I'm like, hello, excuse me. And I hated wearing heels. So I was just like, damn it. Guys, I'm here. I just need to breathe, but I want to be here because I love the vibe and I love the music. So it was kind of a way for me to still get that vibe and music and energy without having to fight with these tall people around me, towering over me. And because I love music, I've always really enjoyed sharing it with other people. So from the mixtapes I was doing as a kid, I guess I saw this opportunity to pick up a new skill. I had some time. So I actually contacted that friend and I asked him to teach me how to DJ. And when I went into university, they just so happened to have a DJing club. So there was a studio and all the DJ equipment already waiting for me to just go practice, right? And while in university, all the people around you are raring to party, right? So that's where I brought my event organization skills and started throwing parties for students.
Did you feel like you were happy that you were exactly where you wanted to be? From the outside, it looks like you really had it together. You had something really unique. You were going to the very top.
Not really. No, I have a lot of friends who are like, Sabrina, what are you doing with your life? Why are you spending all this time DJing and organizing parties? Isn't it a waste of time? Shouldn't you be studying and getting better grades? My grades were not that bad. I was averaging a B+.
Okay.
Fine. I still haven't shown anyone my university degree. In my own world, I was enjoying myself and I was making side money, just making some cash from that, using that to fund my travels as well. So I would like take trips here and there. I would buy usually like CDs, back in the day, it was still quite a thing. Usually I would buy like gadgets. Yeah, no, so I thought I was doing okay. But I did have a lot of people around me who kept questioning like what I was doing, and then they didn't realize I was also making money from it.
With those comments and those questions filtering into you and making you doubt yourself.
Definitely. So during university, it felt like it was fine, right? Like I still was working on my degree. I was making side cash, enjoying it. So life seemed fine. I was also motivated to make the money because my mom had told me at like, I think in the second or third year of uni, she was like, I'm not going to fund any more like extra things. You're going to have to pay for all your travel from here on out. So then I was like self-motivated to make that extra cash. And it was much more fun than like, I don't know, working in a department store or something. So I would say that I was affected more so when I hit my mid-20s after university. I didn't have an official first job after university. So in my final semester of university, I had the opportunity to be a resident DJ for one of Singapore's biggest club collectives. They were called Massive Collective. It's funny that I say collective now. It's like it's kind of a foreshadow. Interesting. So they're called Massive Collective, and they were pretty massive in Singapore. They were running some of Singapore's biggest clubs called Mink, at that time Dream, and there's also Filter. That was like Singapore's biggest VIP club. So I had this opportunity where they offered me to play at their clubs, and in return, the pay was substantially higher than average fresh graduate job. And I would only have to do this like 3 days or 3 nights a week. So then I was like, all right, let's do this. And so I did. I got myself into the whole DJing thing regularly 3 times a week, maybe 4 times at nightclubs or at events when I was fresh out of uni. And I continued to do so for about like a year and a half after that. But during that time, I was hit with a couple of existential crises and depressive episodes as well. So it was a hard time. I started questioning myself again when I got hit by depression.
I imagine that a lot of people would just think, if they're not familiar with this, that we all go through these existential crises. We all think, why are we on this earth for? Why am I doing my life? But it sounds like what you went through is actually different from what people would go through.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think there are a couple of triggers for these episodes, right? Usually it would be a combination of anxiety and depression coming up, and then it would kind of spiral into an existential crisis to a point where I'm like, okay, if I can't find an answer to the meaning of life or of my life, and I can't find a viable pathway forward, then what's the point of living? That was like the thought process I would go through several times. But I think what happened when I was out of university, I think after university, I faced a couple of like stressful events as well. So I kind of have to like rewind to the point where my last semester was happening. What happened there was that I had just back from exchange. I had just broken up with my then boyfriend, and I was going through a very strange transition period where I was trying to figure out where to live. So my parents split after my junior college, and when I had come back from exchange, I wasn't sure where to live because my mom was planning a move to New Zealand, and then my dad I had been estranged from for a while. So when I came back, I had actually nowhere to live. So my dad actually said, Sabrina, fine, you can come stay with me for a while. But he had just married his now wife. And I entered a very strained environment where it was very uncomfortable for me. So then I had to move out after 1 month of being there. And then I had moved to my mom's kind of like a temporary rental accommodation before she figured out her own life plans as well. So I think there were a couple of transitions that I had to manage. Like, what do I do with my life? The other part was, where do I stay? Where do I live? How do I find my grounding again? When the opportunity for that DJing job came around, which paid me then, I think it was about 4 to 5K comfortably a month, Singapore dollars, versus a fresh grad salary for a marketing grad who would earn, like, if you're lucky, you get 3K. So when I had to choose between the two options, I obviously chose the DJing option because that would give me the financial freedom to potentially rent a place. I went on to live with my mum for a bit until she moved to New Zealand, and then I moved to my uncle's place. But the entire time I was in university, I was kind of distracting myself with school, with relationships, with friendships, with the whole DJing thing and events thing, and exploring and finding myself. But then when university ended, and I think while I was doing the whole DJing thing, I had also a lot more time in between those DJ gigs. I think that kind of gave rise to the whole like, okay, I think there's a lot of trauma to unpack through like my parents' divorce, through my relationship with each of them as well. I felt like a big factor that played into my depression back then was, I guess, just feeling very alone and isolated and not having any direction or stability in life.
Do
Yeah.
you try to seek help, talk to people, share your thoughts?
Yeah, I tried. I mean, I talked to my friends a lot. They were pretty patient and understanding with me. Eventually, it got to a point where they're like, Sabrina, you're just asking for attention now. You're too much. We can't handle you. You're such a party pooper. And I was like, okay. So that's a different story, right? But after my mom left to New Zealand, my uncle or her brother actually kind of became the main parental figure for me. So I would talk to him about it a lot as well. But at the same time, we were kind of new in this new evolved version of the relationship. I also wasn't super open with him. I felt pretty alone and misunderstood, I guess, or I didn't feel like I had anyone to turn to who would fully like support me and unconditionally care for me, I guess. Which, when I was going through those depressive episodes, it was hard to find a reason to hold on.
Wasn't this around the time when you started going to therapy?
Oof. So therapy actually started a bit later. So in 2015, that was when I was born in 1990, so 2015, 25. Early in the year, one of my close friends, we were kind of dating, you know how that goes, kinda. So I had stayed with my uncle for about a year. Then I moved out of his place. And on the day I moved out, I was supposed to move out to my friend's place and we were still supposed to stay with two other friends. So that friend, he actually killed himself the day I moved out.
Oh no.
I mean, the day I was moving in. I think that shocked me quite a bit because he was actually the person who kind of helped me get through my previous depressive episode. Like he was there for me and he kind of took care of me during that time. So yeah, it was quite a shock for me when he decided to kill himself. It was quite elaborate as well, and we found everything and he had left a note. And so it was after that I realized that it affected my ability to like focus, to concentrate. And also at that point, I was still DJing, but I also had taken on a job to fill my time in between. So I was working at a place, at a startup, and I actually had to take a break from work. Also not such a good idea because then I had more time to ruminate and question everything. So it's not great. So yeah, that actually kind of got me into a deeper depressive episode, the worst I had up till that point. And that was when I first started seeking therapy. I actually went to a GP, general practitioner, and he had given me some Xanax to just like tide myself through, make sure I sleep fine. He was the one who told me, why don't you go see a therapist? And then he gave me the contact to my first ever therapy session, or my first therapist.
Wasn't this like a private practice rather than public? Because your mom told you not to go to public. There was a story behind this, right?
Yeah. So my mom, I did talk to my mom. When my mom moved to New Zealand, we actually started having a much better relationship because I guess absence makes the heart grow fonder and we can just like focus on the essential stuff. So I did reach out to her when all of this happened and she was quite concerned. But she also said that, hey, you might want to consider getting help from the private system and not the public system because you don't want to have that on your record. You never know if you might want to work for the government or someone who might be able to check your records.
And that's actually not true. They don't have access.
It's actually not true. Now I know it's not true. Okay, so right now I've learned that legally one can only check for a person's records if you've been charged for something, if you have to bring that to court. Otherwise, no, it's not legal to share any records of that sort. So yes, I saw a private therapist and she turned out to be pretty good, but honestly, now I realize that by the time I sought help from her, it was kind of like me seeking help with stage 4 cancer because I was already suicidal. I was already, really planning like, okay, I think I shall go the same way as my friend.
Do you remember when like suicidal thoughts first started
Oof.
coming in?
Well, I mean, first of all, I really thought about it the year before, but I never had a plan. So I actually recovered from that. But this time around, it was a bit different in 2015 because my friend Cal, who had done so for himself, he had left some documents behind which reflected the calculations that he did with the gas that he got to do it. So I knew that there's a painless and practical way of doing it. And he also left behind other documents on his laptop, which we had access to. Because I was at home and that's where he left all his stuff. So obviously I went through all of it. So having access to all of the documents and the planning process that my friend had, yeah, it just seemed a lot more real for me. It became a much more real possibility to follow through. Suicide just seemed like a real option.
What were you getting out of?
I would say it's an option for escape. It was an escape from my brain. It was an escape from all the thoughts that I was experiencing, all the thoughts and the feelings. I think existentially, I just felt like, if he had quite a good life and he's really smart, kind as well. And if he had a reason to get out of this life, then maybe I do too. The other factor was also, I would say it's a combination of like anxiety and depression at work. So I guess on a biological level, I was also not processing this in a healthy way. So what depression felt like for me was that I was experiencing a lot of brain fog, which meant that I wasn't able to apply myself intellectually. I wasn't able to understand what I was reading very well. I wasn't able to communicate coherently, verbally and in written form. So that was like really scary for me because I was just like, oh my God, suddenly I'm dumb. I mean, I think I shared this in my LinkedIn post and I was talking about how if I wasn't smart, then who am I? If I'm not able to communicate, if I'm not able to be effective at my job, then what's the point? Then who am I? And even with the whole DJing thing, when in my depressed state, I was not enjoying music. I didn't care about my gigs. I was just so emotionally detached from what I was doing. Then there was just no point in doing anything.
So when you took the antidepressants, did you feel that there was a change and suddenly everything came alive again?
Oh man, it's not sudden, but it wasn't sudden for sure. That was 2015, and I don't remember if I saw a psychiatrist then, but the next year I had like an even worse depressive episode, and I've written about that as well. But that was actually when I started seeing a psychiatrist more regularly and started taking medication more regularly. In my experience, it took at least about a month to a month and a half before the antidepressants kicked in. So initially, it was all about titration and finding the right medication for me to be on. And then the other part of it was around adherence. So I would refuse to take my medication many times before I finally accepted that this was a condition to manage and that medication does help. So it took me a while to finally accept that. So I remember being diagnosed in March of 2016, and we thought that I had just major depression. And then I was like taking it and not taking it, and it wasn't really going anywhere. I tried to kill myself again in April and then realized I don't really want to die. And then from there, I just decided to give it a proper shot. So looking at the timeline, diagnosis was March, and then April was like, okay, fine, I'll finally accept. And then towards the end of May was when I finally started feeling like, okay, I guess I can do life again. So it took a while to find the right combination of medication and to accept the whole thing and for it to kick in as well.
Yeah, I read that it took you like 2 years or so just to find the right combination, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I was misdiagnosed, right, initially with major depression. But then further down the road, we were wondering why the antidepressants were a bit too much for me. And I would be like kind of over the moon when I was recovered or seemingly recovered. And I would like not be sleeping. I would be like going out all the time. I would start 10 new projects. And then that was when I did some Googling and I realized that bipolar disorder was a thing. And so eventually I got properly diagnosed and now, yeah, things are fine.
What is the difference between being depressed and being bipolar? And I read that there are 4 types of bipolars as well.
Bipolar, yeah. So I'm not gonna go into like the details of the different types, right? You can probably find a YouTube video for that. But the main difference between depression and bipolar is that if you look at depression as a unipolar depression, like one-sided, right? Then if you look at bipolar as two poles, where you have still depression, but another pole, which is like what they called mania, and both ends of the poles can show up differently for each person. For mania, what that means is that firstly, I think your sleep will give way. You'll need much less sleep. Some people don't sleep for like 1-2 days. Some people may need like 3-4 hours of sleep. For me, it was about 4 hours or 3 hours. The other part would be you'd have like a lot of racing thoughts and ideas, and you would typically have also like grandiose plans where you're like, all right, so the things I've heard would be like, I think I was sent by God to do something really important here for mankind. The other thing might be, I really want to stop climate change and I have a plan for it after like 2 nights of research, right? Or 1 night of research with 0 prior experience. Hypersexuality is also another one. You'd be like super confident in your mind, super appealing to everybody, and then you go do things. And then you're also super sociable, where you make a lot of new friends, you talk. You might also talk at a kind of a rapid speech. So those are like the common traits of mania. So for me, I have bipolar 2 disorder, which means I have hypomania, which is a not so life-threatening version of mania, or like not super extreme, but it's also characterized by more depressive episodes. So that's me.